Today I bring you the second movie of the Cloverfield series, 10 Cloverfield Lane. The formula is the same. Once again, it is about an external invasion, and once again, it is a low-budget production. Although set in the same universe, the two films are only connected through a few Easter eggs, which will be explained one by one in the story. Michelle had just gone through the pain of a breakup, and she decided to return to the countryside alone for a while. She would never imagine that this decision would turn into her nightmare. In the blink of an eye, it is already nighttime. Michelle stops her car to refuel, and in the distance, a white pickup truck approaches. Remember this pickup truck? It is very important, but Michelle does not pay much attention. After filling up the tank, she gets back on the road. On the way, the radio broadcasts news of unexplained power outages across many cities in the southern United States, foreshadowing that disaster is about to strike. At this moment, her ex-boyfriend calls her. Just as she lowers her head to check, Michelle's car suddenly spins out of control and flies off the road. When she wakes up again, she has already been rescued. Not knowing what has happened, she looks cautiously at the unfamiliar surroundings. But when Michelle looks down, she is terrified to find her leg chained up with iron shackles. She sees her clothes in the distance, and Michelle remembers her phone. So she used the IV stand to try to reach it. And after some effort, she finally managed to get her phone. But the next second, she is stunned because her phone signal is too weak. Just as Michelle is about to despair, she hears footsteps coming from afar. A man appears with a gun on his belt. It is obvious he is not friendly. Michelle pleads with the man not to hurt her and to let her go. But the man does not say much. He simply sets up the IV drip again and even kindly gives her a pair of crutches. Michelle says that her ex-boyfriend must have already called the police, and they are looking for her. Immediately, the man throws her the key to the shackles, which leaves Michelle completely stunned. As soon as the man left, she quickly used the key to unlock the shackle and hurried to put on her clothes. Then she sharpened the crutch into a weapon and waited by the door, planning to strike a fatal blow the moment he came in. But after waiting a long time, the man never appears. So Michelle has to find another way out. She sets her eyes on the ventilation duct above and easily removes the cover. She lights a cloth strip with a match, hoping to draw the man's attention. As the flames rise, this trick works, and soon she hears his footsteps outside. When Michelle wakes up again, Howard brings her food. He does not seem hostile. Instead, he says, Michelle should be thankful to still be alive and to stay here. But Michelle only wants Howard to let her go, and he replies that there is nowhere to go now, which makes her confused. Howard then explains what has happened. He says that America has suffered an unknown attack. He does not know if it is chemical weapons or nuclear weapons, but life on the surface has become impossible, and the place they are in now is a doomsday bunker that Howard had prepared in advance. He goes on to say that when he was driving by, he saw Michelle's car overturned, so he had no choice but to rescue her. But Michelle clearly does not believe him and insists that she should be taken to a hospital.
You can't leave. An attack means fallout, which contaminates the air above ground. That's how it works.
Well, how long do we have to wait until it's safe?
Depends on proximity to the closest blast, 1 year, maybe 2. And that's if we're talking about weapons that we know of. Russians are developing some nasty stuff, and if the Martians finally figured out a way to get here, their weapons will make the Ruskies look like sticks and stones. Luckily, I prepared for this.
Seeing this, Michelle asks to use his phone to call her family, but Howard tells her that everyone on the surface should already be dead. Suddenly, a noise comes from outside the door, clearly showing that there are other people here. Howard reminds Michelle to eat and sleep so that she can recover faster, and then he leaves. Exhausted from being on edge for so long, Michelle falls into a deep sleep. When she wakes again, she hears the sound of cars above ground, which does not match what Howard has told her. This time, the iron door in the distance is open, and she carefully walks out, seeing the corridors filled with supplies, and she also meets the third person in the bunker, Emmett. Emmett tells Michelle that this is already the 3rd day in the bunker. Michelle tries to convince Emmett to escape with her, since what Howard says is suspicious. But Emmett is different, because he personally witnessed what happened on the surface. Howard shows Michelle around the bunker where not only are all the living facilities complete, but there are also entertainment areas and air purification systems, a fully prepared survival shelter. Michelle looked at the girl's magazine on the table and felt that something was wrong. Howard then explained that it belonged to his daughter Megan, but his daughter had already left him with his ex-wife. Michelle says she heard the sound of cars above ground, but Howard insists that is impossible. Michelle believes what she heard, and she asks whether they should call the police to confirm. But Howard claims the bunker's radio cannot pick up any signal. Seeing her doubts, he then takes Michelle to the passage leading to the surface. Having not seen sunlight for so long, Michelle longs to return above ground, and she slowly walks up. Howard opens the airlock door, and Michelle eagerly looks out through the window. Outside, except for 2 rotting pig corpses, everything else seems normal. At that moment, she notices something. She remembers the car that hit her was a pickup, and outside is that very pickup. Not only that, the scratches on the pickup truck proved that Howard was the one who had crashed into her. This makes her doubt his story even more. Michelle feels a chill down her back, and the seed of escape begins to grow in her heart. But at this moment, she does not show it. Back in the room, Michelle learns from Emmett that Howard once served in the U.S. Navy, and that his work was related to military satellites. About 2 years ago, Howard bought this place and hired Emmett to help him build the bunker. Because of his work, Michelle had an uneasy feeling, and she thought Emmett had also been kidnapped. But Emmett laughed and said he had not been kidnapped. Michelle still believes Howard's words are all lies. Emmett explains that when the disaster happened, the first thing he thought of was this shelter. When he arrived, Howard was just about to close the door, and he forced his way inside, which is why his arm was injured. At mealtime, Michelle is filled with thoughts of escape. She notices the keys hanging from Howard's waist. Watching Howard and Emmett talk at the table, she clearly feels Howard's overwhelming dominance and pressure, which makes her more fearful than ever. Howard seems to hate talking at the dinner table. Michelle quickly picks up on this and comes up with an idea. She starts loudly chatting with Emmett. This behavior completely enrages Howard. The next second,
What exactly do you think you're doing? Is that how you thank me for saving your life here in the shelter that I built that's keeping you alive? I want you to apologize. I have shown you nothing but generosity and hospitality.
And I'm so sorry.
Michelle successfully got the key, and at this moment, her heart rate instantly shot up to 180, leaving her too scared to move. Howard drank his beverage in one gulp, then picked up another bottle. Now, if he tried to use the bottle opener on the keychain to open the cap, Michelle would be discovered. At this moment, he also sensed that something was wrong with Michelle.
Where are my keys?
Fortunately, at the very last second before being caught by Howard, she managed to lock the door from the outside, and then she was about to open the door, leading to the outside world.
No.
You can't help her! No one can!
You'll be okay! Let me in!
This time, Michelle completely believed Howard's words, and Howard also revealed the truth. It turned out that on the day of the attack, he was in a panic, trying to rush back to the bunker, and when he overtook at a bend, his speed was too fast, and he accidentally overturned Michelle's car. Because of this, he felt very guilty, and in the end, he had no choice but to bring her back. After returning, he never dared to tell Michelle, and now Howard wanted to ask for her forgiveness. He told Michelle to take a shower to avoid being infected by the toxic gas outside, and kindly brought out Megan's clothes for her to change into. After showering, Howard wanted Michelle to help him stitch his wound, and he even brought out the alcohol he brewed himself to give her some courage. Michelle complained it tasted awful, so Howard sprayed compressed carbon monoxide onto the cup to instantly cool it down, saying it would taste better this way. With Michelle's help, Howard successfully stitched his wound, and from his words she learned that Howard's daughter once dreamed of becoming an artist, and he even took out Megan's photo for her to see. But later his ex-wife left him with his daughter and went to Chicago. From then on, Michelle completely trusted Howard and no longer thought of leaving. To cope with the boring life, they tried every way to pass the time, and Michelle also carefully decorated her room. They watched movies together, played games together, and things seemed to be moving in a good direction. Until one day, the warning light came on, and Howard said that something might be blocking the air filtration system, and if it could not be restarted, they would soon be in mortal danger. So they decided to let the slim Michelle crawl through the ventilation duct to repair it. Fortunately, under Howard's instructions, she managed to crawl through the duct, and out safely. Please note, on this letter we see that Howard once worked for the Taguato Company, and the company's address was in Tokyo, Japan, which was the same company that Rob was about to work for in the movie Cloverfield. The sender was Howard, and the address was 10 Cloverfield Lane. This hinted that there might be a shared conspiracy behind the two films. After coming out, Michelle followed Howard's instructions to restart the machine, and luckily the system came back to life. Just as she was about to leave, Michelle discovered that the bunker did not have only one exit. There was actually another staircase leading outside. She carefully climbed up, trying to open the door, but found that the door had been locked. The next second, she made a shocking discovery. The key issue was that when she touched it, she realized the scratch marks on the skylight were not on the outside but carved from the inside, which was deeply disturbing. This showed that very likely someone had met a bad end inside this bunker before. This made Michelle, who had just built trust, feel deep fear inside. Not only that, she also found an earring on the ground. When she returned, Michelle compared the earring with the photo, and it was the same earring worn by the girl in the picture. Emmett exclaimed that the girl in the photo was not Megan at all, but his sister's high school classmate, who had mysteriously disappeared 2 years ago. Many people thought she had run away from home, and the matter was dropped. Now, both of them felt a terrible premonition. They became even more certain that Howard had kidnapped and harmed that girl. In this sealed dungeon, they had been living with such a dangerous man for so long, just the thought made them shiver. But at this moment, they could not reveal anything. They could only pretend nothing had happened, but both of them had already decided to escape. But even if they escaped, where could they go? On one side was the end of the world, and on the other side was a deadly threat, so they had to think carefully. One day while showering, Michelle saw the rubber shower curtain, and a bold idea came to her mind. She wanted to use it to make a simple protective suit. But how could she get the shower curtain without Howard noticing? So Emmett kept whispering in Howard's ear, saying he worried Michelle was too close to toxic gas and maybe even the shower curtain had been contaminated. This trick worked. Howard found it reasonable, so he quickly changed the shower curtain and threw it into the garbage chute. And while Howard was not paying attention, Emmett and Michelle used a rack to hook the curtain back. In the days that followed, Emmett and Michelle cooperated in silence. Emmett was in charge of stealing tools, while Michelle focused on making the protective suit, and everything proceeded quietly. One day they were playing a guessing game. When Emmett pointed at Michelle and said the word was related to her, Howard racked his brain and only came up with words like little girl or princess, while the answer was woman. Howard complained that Emmett should have been more specific.
I'm always watching. Always.
God.
I go wherever I want. I know what you're up to.
Look, Howard, I don't know what you're getting at.
I see when you're sleeping.
I
know what you're doing. And I'm always watching.
I don't know.
Always watching. I'm always watching.
Santa Claus.
Except it was Emmett's turn.
Then it was Howard's turn to let them guess. Although Michelle guessed correctly, it was clear Howard had definitely sensed something. When Michelle returned, she sped up the making of the protective suit, but footsteps were heard outside. With no time to clean up, she hurriedly hid everything under the mattress. The person who came was Howard, and Michelle acted as if nothing had happened. He called Michelle out to help and also called Emmett over. They went to the living room, where he opened a cabinet, and inside was a large blue barrel. Emmett and Michelle asked what was inside, but Howard did not answer and only told them to help move it to the bathroom. When they arrived at the bathroom, Howard said it was a barrel of perchloric acid, extremely corrosive, able to destroy anything completely.
This is perchloric.
What's in it?
I'm talking about getting rid of some waste. Tell me what you two are doing with these.
It turned out Howard had discovered the scissors and tape that Emmett had stolen, and he ordered them to tell the truth, otherwise the ending would be the same as the scissors. Seeing that things had been exposed, in order not to implicate Michelle, Emmett took all the blame, claiming he wanted Howard's gun so he could earn respect. Luckily, Howard believed Emmett's words, but unexpectedly, Howard suddenly ended Emmett's life with a gunshot, and an overwhelming sense of terror surged in Michelle's heart. She knew her last hope was gone, and now she had to find a way to escape the bunker immediately. So that night, she completed the making of the protective suit. However, at this very moment, Howard arrives again. She hid the clothes under the mattress and hid the makeshift gas mask inside the ventilation duct. But this time, Howard sensed something was wrong. He opened the duct cover and reached his hand inside. Fortunately, he was not tall enough, and after failing to touch anything, he put the cover back on. But when he turned around, he saw the protective suit hidden under the mattress. Luckily, she used her agility to run into the bathroom because if she wanted to escape from here, one thing was crucial, and that was the bottle of compressed carbon monoxide. Rushing into the bathroom, she saw Emmett, who had not completely dissolved, and she quickly grabbed the bottle of carbon monoxide. At that moment, Howard chased in right behind her, and as she was cornered, Michelle kicked over the barrel of perchloric acid. The pain made Howard fall to his knees instantly, while Michelle clung tightly to the doorframe and leapt out. Wherever the perchloric acid touched, violent corrosion began, and the wires being corroded immediately caught fire. She ran back to grab the protective suit she had made, and just as she stepped out, the relentless Howard chased her again. Michelle pushed over a shelf to pin Howard down, then jumped over it to escape. She moved a table and stepped on it to crawl into the ventilation duct, but to her shock, the not yet dead Howard blocked the way with a knife. Michelle did not dare stop for a moment. She crawled forward with all her strength, but at the very last second, Howard grabbed her ankle.
You don't know what. Stay with me.
She finally managed to crawl out, put on the protective suit, and climb toward the opening. Using the method Howard had once taught her, she sprayed compressed carbon monoxide onto the iron lock. The freezing cold made the metal brittle, and after a few strikes, it broke open. She finally crawled out of the terrifying prison, and the moment she saw daylight again, she felt long-lost freedom. Michelle looked around at everything outside. There were no terrifying creatures and no enemies. She walked toward the pickup truck to see if there was anything useful. But the moment she got in, her protective suit was torn open, which scared Michelle badly. She quickly pulled out tape to seal the tear, but logically toxic gas should have entered the suit by now, and she should have been affected. But then Michelle saw a flock of geese flying in the sky, and if there really was toxic gas, these creatures should not still be alive. A frightening thought grew in her mind. Maybe there was no toxic gas in the air at all. Then she bravely took off the mask and, unbelievably, she was fine. Michelle gave a helpless smile. The days inside the bunker now seemed like a joke. Just then, she heard a sound in the distance. She climbed onto the truck roof and looked far away, and to her shock, it was an alien ship drifting above the cornfield. Suddenly, the bunker exploded with a massive blast, and the bright flames instantly drew the ship's attention. Michelle had just escaped death, only to fall into another nightmare. The alien ship dropped 2 objects, then flew away. She hurried back into the pickup to search for the keys. Suddenly, she remembered the car that woman had driven earlier. But when she opened the door, the car alarm went off, and she had to run into the barn, nervously watching through the window. Soon, the creature tracked her to the barn, and Michelle quickly used the car key to shut off the alarm of a distant vehicle, successfully luring the creature away. She crawled out of the barn and was shocked to see lights inside a house not far away. At that moment, she felt like she had grabbed onto a lifeline, and she desperately ran toward it. But the creature noticed her too. Unexpectedly, it was not a house light at all, but the spotlight of the alien ship. As the ship rose, it released a huge amount of green gas from its underside. Clearly, that was the so-called toxic gas. Michelle ran back to the pickup with all her strength, quickly picked up the gas mask she had just taken off, and narrowly avoided disaster. But the danger was not over yet. The creature rushed at her, and she scrambled into the truck. The creature opened its huge mouth, but luckily the mask was in place. Suddenly, the creature left, and Michelle quickly shut the car door, and the next second, the pickup was lifted into the air. Through the window, she saw the ship's tentacles dragging the truck toward its opening. Just when she was about to give up hope, a bottle of liquor and a lighter gave her new courage. Michelle quickly made a firebomb, and just as she was about to be sucked into the storm, she threw it at the right moment. When Michelle woke up again, the ship was burning and crashing to the ground. Having narrowly escaped death once more, she quickly drives away. On the way out, the car accidentally knocked down a mailbox, and the camera gave a close-up, showing the words 10 Cloverfield Lane. This revealed that the letter sent to Taguado Company had been mailed from here. It also hinted that the arrival of the creatures was closely tied to the company's project. On the road, Michelle heard through the radio that many survivors were organizing resistance against the invaders, and that the military had set up a safe zone in the north. Hearing that Houston needed help, Michelle gave up on heading to the northern safe zone, and turned toward Houston instead. Little did she know that greater danger was waiting for her. As the camera pulled back, several gigantic figures could be seen looming faintly in the distant clouds. The movie ended here. 10 Cloverfield Lane, as a film blending suspense, thriller, and science fiction elements, hides in its tight plot and exploration of trust and survival dilemmas, and also satirizes certain real-life issues through extreme scenarios. Through the interactions of the 3 main characters in the closed space, the film shows the many sides of human nature, Howard has both a controlling and paranoid side, and a distorted sense of protection driven by fear of the end of the world. Michelle, from passive resistance to active survival, embodies the courage and resilience of ordinary people in desperate situations. The film does not simply label characters as good or bad, but presents the struggles and contradictions of human nature in extreme environments. At first, Michelle doubted Howard's doomsday claims, but as he showed evidence in survival threats, she began to waver. When the truth was revealed, the collapse of trust directly triggered conflict and death. The film explores how, in an environment where survival comes first and information is unequal, trust becomes a luxury, and blind trust or complete doubt can both exact a heavy price. Howard's bunker symbolizes absolute safety, but at the cost of freedom. And whether the apocalypse outside was real or not, it represented the unknown danger. In the end, Michelle chose to break out of the bunker, and even when facing the cruel reality of alien invasion, she refused to be trapped in false safety. This choice affirms the value of freedom over mere survival and shows that the desire for autonomy can sometimes outweigh even the instinct to live. Howard saw himself as a savior, building his authority with a self-consistent logic, trying to force others to obey his rules. This kind of control in the name of protection satirizes the abuse of power in real life that is often excused with the phrase, "It's for your own good." What is called truth may simply be a narrative shaped by those in power, and blind obedience to authority may lead to the loss of self. The doomsday theory in the film was eventually proven true, but Howard's paranoia and extreme actions were more like an exaggerated projection of real-world anxiety about the end of days. People often worry about unknown disasters, and some even use this to create fear and seek control. This anxiety makes some prefer to believe in savior-like lies rather than face the uncertainty of reality. In short, 10 Cloverfield Lane tells a story of a closed space under the shadow of doomsday, using a small tale to reflect on the essence of human nature, trust, and freedom. At the same time, it reflects on power, control, and group anxiety, leaving viewers with thoughts about the meaning of survival beyond the thrills. That's all for today. See you next time.